Hello Internet, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this is Who Cares, where we're going to discuss and debate the Doctor on his adventures through space and time.
So prepare yourself to witness the most disgruntled groundskeeping Scot since Willie.
Damn Scots! They ruined Scotland!
You Scots sure are a contentious people.
You just made an enemy for life!
So hello everyone, this is Who Cares, as I said. We're changing up the structure a little bit of the show, just so you know.
Tiny bit.
We're gonna not spend nearly as much time talking about recapping the episode.
Right. Turns out a lot of you guys watch it first and then
Obviously.
and then come here, which we should have thought about. That makes sense. So we're gonna spend less time about that and more time analyzing.
So we're just going to talk about it. So a brief synopsis of the episode. This is the episode The Caretaker, written by Gareth Roberts and Stephen Moffat. Again,
Yes.
Moffat is co-writer on about half the episodes
What I
this
think
season.
that is, though, is Moffat is getting writing credits for adding the overarching storyline that we're going to get into, which has so far been like the Missy thing and some of the Clara stuff.
I think it's that, but see, he also did the Cracks in the Universe, and he didn't get writing credits for those as far as I'm aware.
That's fair. Maybe he didn't edit as much.
But I think it's probably because the Missy stuff, along with he's probably consulting with these people saying, no, this is how this Doctor acts. Or,
first
or,
Doctor stuff is kind of
Yeah.
first time through a certain Doctor's. Anyways,
So this episode, the Doctor, there's a threat at Coal Hill School, the school where Clara and Danny work.
Yep.
It's a robot. The Doctor shows up incognito. He pretends to be a caretaker, as the title suggests.
basically a maintenance guy slash janitor, and he kind of goes around and does stuff. And every time you see him, he's placing these little, like, he calls them time mines around, and he's trying to basically trap this killing machine robot that could really have been anything,
Yeah.
but it's a killing machine robot.
But when he does finally try and trap it, Danny gets in the way. He gets very mad at Danny. They meet for the first time. Clara's conflicted. There's conflict. Intrapersonal conflict. And then finally, of course, they team up in the end and stop the monster, and all is well. Or is it? But that's the episode. See? Painless. That was much shorter than usual. So let's actually spend some time talking about the episode itself.
First thing we have to mention, for sure, is how great of a character-building episode this was.
Oh, I agree. The Doctor himself gets a lot of character this episode,
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
This is one of the first episodes this season, because don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed a lot of the other episodes. You know that from listening to this series.
Oh, yeah.
This is the first one, well, as I'm watching it, I felt like, yes, this feels like an episode of Doctor Who. I could see Tennant or Eccleston or Smith in this situation. Obviously, they would handle it differently,
Right.
but I can see them in this situation in the school with this monster trying to blend in. It feels a little bit like The Lodger, which I think was also written by the same guy, where the Doctor's trying to blend into normal human society.
It's really interesting whenever the Doctor is forced into a situation where he has to, like, try to assimilate and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But everyone always likes him because he's the Doctor and he's just a likable guy.
That being...
But this is interesting because
Yeah.
nobody likes him, really.
That's an interesting way to look at it versus, like, when Matt Smith tried to be a human, he was just the best human without even
Played
trying.
soccer and, like, was really... football, and was really good at, like, cooking, and he was, like, a really good roommate.
Yeah.
But
Everyone hates Capaldi, though, because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
it is funny.
I liked the callbacks they had to 11 when he was talking to Clara the first time in that little side staff room. He was
Yeah.
saying, one time I lived among otters. Well, I kind of sulked amongst them. I had a fight with River. And that was funny.
Yeah.
The other 11 reference, which was really smart and ties into the character, and I think it's very telling about who 12 is as the Doctor.
Right. He's trying to find out who Clara's boyfriend has been. Like, he knows that she's been going out on dates, and she's told him, but she's never shared who it is. Obviously, we know it's Danny. But anyways, there's another teacher there who looks just like Matt Smith. Bow tie, tall, kind of skinny guy, raggedy hair. But it's really interesting because then you see the Doctor kind of proud that she picked someone that looks like him even though she didn't. And you can kind of see how upset he is when it ends up he finds out that Danny, who he calls the PE teacher the whole time because he's used to be a soldier and it doesn't make sense to him that he's a math teacher at all. You could see how kind of disappointed he is that she didn't end up picking him even if it wasn't him.
Tennant, I think a little more on the surface. was kind of full of himself. He thought he was really great. This doctor isn't as much on the surface, but the minute he saw the guy who looked like him, he assumed, of course this must be the person Clara chose. Why wouldn't she choose him? He looks like me.
Exactly.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And then when she says later, no, it's not him, he's not even my type, he has this look on his face where it's like, what? That doesn't make any fucking sense. So that's really great. That's very telling about his character. And when he finally does meet Danny, as we said, he doesn't like him because he's a soldier, and this doctor especially has this aversion to soldiers.
Right.
And he keeps saying he's a PE teacher, even though he's a maths teacher. And he has a funny line, too, where he's trying to explain to him, no, I'm a math teacher. And he goes, wait, you're a soldier and a maths teacher? And he goes, yes. And he goes, yeah, sorry, I'm trying, but I just can't retain that.
It's one of the funnier episodes this season, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really great, and I really like the guy who plays Danny. I think he does an excellent job of being charming, not confident, but he still like, you can tell he used to be a soldier. I don't know, for some reason, this cast just makes sense.
I think it's because he feels like a real person, because on some level, certainly, he doesn't understand what's going on, and he's taken aback by it. But he's also was a soldier, and he's not, like, completely unconfident. He's not like Mickey. He has self-confidence, so he's not going to take the doctor's shit.
He's like Mickey in the alternate universe before he was the soldier.
Yeah, kind of.
If anyone understands what I'm talking about.
So yeah, that was all really good, and the conflict between him and the doctor felt genuine for the most
real,
part.
And it felt like they clearly both care enough about Clara to kind of take a stand.
I think that's what made it work, too, is because the conflict doesn't arise just over the fact that he's a soldier, it's that the doctor is worried about Clara.
Right.
That's what makes it work. It's endearing because of that. Because if it were just because he's a soldier, the doctor would come off as a huge asshole, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have some lines later on when Danny will end up sneaking onto the TARDIS with this invisible watch that the doctor had earlier that Clara gives him so she can prove to him that, hey, you know, the doctor isn't really all that bad. And he has a really good line where he's like, he's not mad, he's worried I'm not good enough. It's interesting to see when the doctor is vulnerable at all, even though he's commonly vulnerable, like, physically, but usually emotionally, he's like, got it.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see him when he cares about things and being proud about it, almost, and trying not to be weak.
I think this, too, it finally cements exactly what the relationship between the 12th Doctor and Clara is, because obviously it had to shift drastically from 11. Right. They even said it in the episode, and I think it's intentional. He's like, is that your space dad? Basically, it is. He's almost being like a surrogate father for her in the sense that he's this older gentleman who kind of does stuff with her, and even though she's kind of his teacher, he's protective in a fatherly way. Right. Anyway, the monster of the episode, I forget what it's called, but it doesn't really matter, because that's basically the subplot of the episode.
It could have been the same, you could have had any of the monsters, but it really reminded me of the one in the Van Gogh episode, which was more about Amy Van Gogh and the doctor than it was the monster.
I guess.
Because you really don't get a lot of backstory on this monster. They have a throwaway line where it's like, what?
Even though, I mean, don't get me wrong, the writing on this episode is excellent, because clearly the monster is the subplot and the character development is the main one. They didn't really care enough to give it a backstory. They basically say, oh, there's been a lot of tachyon something in this area, that's what brought it here. But they don't explain what it is or where it came from. It's just like a death robot, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I let it go.
It's kind of cool, though. I mean, it is imposing, and it's neat.
Looks like Garrus from Mass Effect, like a lot, the face does.
Yeah.
The conclusion of the episode was a little silly, though. I was fine with the doctor having, like, basically what looked like a proton pack, and he was
talking about the front flip?
Yeah, the front flip is a little silly. I don't like why the front. He was distracting it, but
the front flip was excessive. The front flip is the only thing I didn't like about this episode.
It's like in the first episode with that weird sound effect when she knocks him out. Like there's one thing in the episode where you're like, why'd you do that?
Right. I think if instead of that you had him, like, I don't know, dodge bullets sideways and, like, slide around a little bit, but I get it. You're supposed to be like, yeah, he's fantastic, and he could probably hang with them and be okay in all these situations. I think that's what they're trying to get across, because I assume he's going to end up traveling.
Probably.
But it was just ludicrous for a second, like, and he jumps really high over it, like no human, like LeBron, not happening. Yeah. Danny Pink, though, he's got ups.
we also were introduced to another character in this episode, Courtney, and she was actually seen in previous episodes. If you remember in the first episode, Deep Breath, Clara had a flashback to her first day as a teacher, and that was that girl.
Yep.
In the second episode, if you remember, Danny was in an office, and there was a girl who was kind of teasing the woman who was hitting on him.
Yeah.
That was also her. So she's been hinted at throughout the series thus far, and this is the first time you've seen her at length. And she's okay. I don't really like kid characters on Doctor Who usually.
It's
anyone younger than 16 usually is kind of annoying.
Yeah. I guess the only time it worked for me was the episode they did with Warwick Davis.
See, I didn't like. That's the one that
Clara
I think
babysitting.
That's the one I think of when I think I dislike it the most.
Do you? I think it worked.
I hated those kids.
I didn't like the battle scenes with them. To be fair, I did like the interaction between them and Clara and Warwick.
But it's just so obvious they're just there to get into trouble.
Clearly, yeah, no, I get it. It's not creative.
And they don't bring anything to the table usually. This one, at least, I think
she's got a good personality.
She has a personality, at least. Like, the kids in Nightmare and Silver were basically just, we're kids, we're stupid, we're gonna wander off. Yeah. Okay. This girl, Courtney, at least, she seems like she's a troubled kid. She acts out, so at least she has some sort of a character.
But she has, like, parents that care way too much, too. So it's kind of weird. Also, side note, only 3 teachers in Coal Hill High School?
Yep, there's an English teacher, a maths teacher, and the guy who looks like Matt Smith is actually a history teacher, which I think is also part of the joke. Is that he's the history teacher, but those are the 3 teachers, apparently.
Yeah. I assume they have more, but they only ever show you the 3.
And she's actually going to be in the next episode. If you watch the next time, you can see her briefly in the next one.
So, Courtney stuff on the TARDIS, and she was kind of there for the end. So,
which
could be interesting or could be terrible.
I'm hoping Danny comes too, because then you have a very similar thing to the first Doctor, where you have 2 teachers from Coal Hill and a student going around doing stuff.
They've been lots of throwbacks, so I would not be surprised at all if that's what happened.
I assume Danny's got to go on at least one true TARDIS.
I think he'll
adventure.
be Mickey. I think he'll be on and off for the most part, and I think he'll have a couple good episodes where he's really in the middle of it.
Yeah, that'd be good. But before we talk about next time, we do have to talk about the Missy subplot, because for the first time in a couple episodes, we have a pretty overt reference to her.
And not only that, but it smashes a lot of theories almost immediately.
Yeah, so there was a cop earlier in the episode that got killed by the robot. Yeah. He was the red shirt in this episode. And at the end of the episode, much like at the end of the first episode where the guy wakes up in the Promised Land, this guy is all of a sudden in this office and it's all white and he's talking to this guy. It's important that there's another guy here.
Yeah.
And he's basically asking him about his death.
And it's a fantastic scene, and the guy who's playing the, I don't know, receptionist almost? Yeah. Or kind of, I don't know, he's like the middleman between the afterlife and this. He's calling it the afterlife, he calls it heaven, and what was this?
He said it has a couple names, the Nether Sphere, which actually Missy's actual character is called the something of the Nether Sphere, the gatekeeper of the Nether Sphere, something like that. She's credited as that in the last episode.
But you see, it's no longer just this little garden, which looked a lot like the inside of a TARDIS. Now it's this almost like complex, and it's a hallway with white doors, white everything. And then they take a look outside, and you never see what's outside, but the cop who just died, blown away by whatever he sees. It could just be endless whiteness and nothingness. It could be something magnificent. I don't know. I'm at this point out of theories.
I don't know, because I don't think at this point the Time Lord theory kind of gets thrown out the window.
It would have to,
because there's another
Gallifrey.
Unless it is
Gallifrey.
But there's another guy there too, which throws me off. I was thinking it was like a single Time Lord doing something with the Doctor, but now there's another guy there too, unless they explain he's a hologram or a program or something, whatever.
Or a companion, which
I
would
guess.
be interesting.
But I don't know. The recent theory I've heard with this new information is she's like death incarnate, and she's mad at the Doctor and sick of his shit because he keeps saving people.
That'd be interesting.
And she was excited for him about to die after 11, but then he cheated death yet again, and now she's sick of it, and now she's going to...
But she seems infatuated with him.
See, but wouldn't you be... Imagine you're death incarnate,
I guess, yeah.
And there's this person who keeps cheating death and keeps saving other people. Wouldn't you you'd be mad at first, but after like 1,000 years, you'd be like, impressed. I'm kind of impressed with this guy.
That could be fair. I think no matter what, at this point, it's going to turn out to be extremely interesting and very entertaining, because the way they're playing it, they're not shoving it down your throats, but when they give you a scene, it's so filled with just new stuff. It's great. It seems like the Crack in the Wall-esque.
I think it'll be better than that, though.
I hope it's better than that, but I mean, for the first little bit, the Crack in the Wall is like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. So I think that'll be good. We'll see more, hopefully, next time. And next time, we have the episode Kill the Moon. And this is actually the time slot for the show had to get moved later because this one's apparently scary.
Ooh, I'm excited. I love Scary Who episodes. They're always my favorite.
It looks like we have the Doctor, Courtney, Clara. I didn't see Danny, but it's possible he'll be there. But
I hope he is.
At least,
I think that'd be interesting.
At least the Doctor, Courtney, and Clara. And they go to the moon, and there's some sort of spider monster, which is good.
Of course.
I guess they've done spider monsters one time before when David Tennant killed that giant spider woman.
Yeah.
Unless maybe they're the same species and this is just a younger one.
That'd be interesting.
Who
It
knows?
kind of reminds me of the Waters of Mars, the way they showed how it was shot in the preview. So if it can be somewhere around as good / creepy as that, that'd be nice.
Yeah, and interestingly, this episode was actually written for the 11th Doctor, but then obviously he regenerated. Stephen Moffat went to the writer and said, okay, you need to take this entire script and make it scarier though, because this Doctor is not the 11th. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm excited. I think it'll be a good, scary, quote-unquote, Doctor episode.
Right.
So thanks everyone for watching. Until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this has been Who Cares?
Wow.